All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning into the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? And what I want to get into today is basically called Make Peace with Yourself. And this is crazy because I really wanted this podcast more or less to be about comedy and crazy shit, talking to funny people, all different interesting people. And I went on this tangent now where I was just kind of expressing all the different things I've learned in my life. And I've been getting really good feedback on it, so I've kind of just kept going with it, even though I still plan on doing a lot of different things with my podcast, especially interviewing all different types of people. But I keep running into different people, and to make a long story short, this has been working and it's growing. So I don't know if it's just because it's new, it may plateau, but it's growing. So it's kind of hard sometimes. I want to go by what's working now instead of changing, because I've done some things in my podcast where I've changed. And even interviewing some people and some really interesting people, and it has not worked out nearly the way I thought it was. I don't know if I'm not that good of an interviewer or my subjects weren't that good, but when I'm doing these independent one-offs regarding things that I've written about in my books or my program or just that I've learned over the years, it's doing pretty well for me. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. But making peace with yourself. And I'm going to speak, obviously, about what I've been through very quickly, or not very quickly, but I think a lot of times, how do I say this? So I think a lot of people do things, and they do them to impress their parents. I talk about my parents a lot because they're a big part of my life. But I do think if you go back to the core, and this doesn't mean everyone, and I talk about our parents programming us to be kind of miniature versions of them and also protect us, but they want to teach us their core values and install them into us, which is fine, because really we end up talking like them. If you have parents, or you may have been in foster care and you may have had, other elders raise you. I was also, I was raised also by immigrant grandparents. So I get it. We've all been, we have touches and pieces of elders kind of raising us when we're little. Aunts, uncles, cousins, friends. We all take on their habits, good or bad, I talk about. But I think for the most part, a lot of times when we're getting older, we do a lot of things for our parents. We don't really, when we're younger, we acknowledge it because we kind of fear our parents a lot of times, I believe. So we're going through grade school afraid if we don't get the right grade, we're going to get in trouble. We're going to be getting our report cards. Either you're anxious to see it. In my case, I despise seeing my did I say credit card? I hope I said what the hell am I talking about? Grades. I just didn't want to see my grades. So they were never that great. But as we got older, again, a lot of kids' identity got wrapped into what college they would be going to. Would their parents be happy about what they're choosing to be in your life? Because it really does start in your teens, come down to what are you going to be? What are you going to do? Especially in the 80s where I was. We didn't have this wide range of different opportunities or information that we have now. I was from Chicago, so basically it was kind of like, are you going to be a union guy? You want to be a cop? You want to work for the city? You want to be a fireman? Or then you're going to be a lawyer, something white collar? Are you going to be an accountant? Of course there's other jobs. I'm not saying there wasn't. But we were in the fashion industry, so maybe something fashion related, whatever the case may be. It wasn't like all of a sudden we could say, hey, I'm going to do something entirely different. And again, some kids did, right? And a lot of us took on the identity of a lot of our family members too. So a lot of my family were painters on one side, and they went into the painting industry, and some extremely successful. Construction, painting, all that. And then I had other family members that went into other things as well, like they own large mirror companies because my uncle used to own a very large garment factory or run one. And then I had other family members that were in fashion that became designers. The list goes on and on and on. But I realized then, even, you have college, and then when you start to break away from your parents, or I really wasn't that engulfed in college. I only went for 1 year. I just wanted to make money. But I did go work for my father. And I never was really raised with my father from 5 years old on. I did go with him and live with him a couple years in my late teens to really my early 20s, very early, and I left. But working with my father, it kind of became more of a clash, I think, At times we worked really well together. But we were raised in two different environments. My father was a military kid. He was raised in a military school his whole life. And I was raised in Chicago. I did go to a Catholic high school, but I was just I just didn't really have that much in common with him necessarily. I didn't realize how much I didn't have in common with him, I guess you could say. We both liked sports, but the way we did things was entirely different. I wanted to get big, strong. I liked the streets. I liked gambling. I liked collecting money. I liked very different. He was more or less a very flamboyant bar owner, nightclub owner, restaurateur, whatever you want to call him. And I was in the nightclub with him when I was younger, till I was about 12, 13 years old. You know, I would go in and out. But from like 13 to when you become a young man, it's a big change, 13 to 18. But when I worked for him, a lot of times I wasn't the guy who always wanted a pat on the back. Sometimes I'd be like, does he acknowledge how much we're all working or how hard we're working? But I was more like the guy, like, go fuck yourself. I'm going to eventually end up doing my own thing. It was more ego-driven. But I still think a lot of things I did was to impress my father. But I was in a situation where my father ended up getting divorced a couple times, and other things happened where I never wanted to get divorced. I was in a situation where I didn't want to, not being, always be with my kids 24 hours a day, like my father was kind of gone more often. But then as time went on, I slowly became more like my father. That's not a dig on my father, but it's quite interesting because sometimes we don't think we're a certain way when really deep down inside we are. And after I got divorced, the last thing I want to do is get divorced back then. Now I would say it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. But back then, I didn't almost want to forgive myself. I was stuck in this thing where I always felt like I was failing then, even after that. Divorce is really hard on a lot of people. And I talk about it in my program, Mastering Self-Confidence. It's a program to help men or women, mainly men, not women, help men find the woman or women of their dreams, even if they've been through a bad breakup or divorce. Divorce is hard-hitting, man. And usually no one comes out unscathed, right? I don't care if both of you, even mine was probably the best I've ever seen, but still, it's hard on your children, hard on your parents again, hard on your friends, hard on your relatives. Nothing's ever the same, two different households, whatever. But I think not forgiving yourself sometimes, it's a form of feeling like a failure. And I don't think we look at how much we succeed and how really all the incredible things we've done throughout our life. And I had to take a step back for a while myself and figure out, why do I keep doing what I'm doing? Or why do I not feeling like I'm succeeding? I always wanted to be a professional athlete as a young man, and then I just wasn't big enough. I graduated high school like 138 pounds, even though I was pretty good in a lot of sports. Just too small. I want to play football. I even play tennis, but whatever the case may be. Probably wouldn't happen anyways. But when I didn't become a professional athlete when I was younger, I was kind of lost. I was like, oh. And my dad sold his nightclub at 13. I thought, if I don't do sports, I'll just go run his nightclub. He sold that and semi-retired. So I'm feeling like, what the hell am I going to do? He ended up going to Florida and opening another business. But now I'm with my mother, too. My mother, I wasn't a good student. I think my mother was, and I always felt, again, like I failed her to a certain degree. I always felt smart enough to understand or realize how dumb I was. That was a funny expression I used to say, and a lot of people laugh at it. But the truth was, I'm intelligent enough to understand how unintelligent I really am. I believe that about myself. I still do. But I kind of, after that, because I always succeeded, I was really good in sports for being small, and you're always winning, and you're, you know what I mean, all these things. So I jumped into hardcore bodybuilding to get an identity of, not bodybuilding, just bodybuilding, but not becoming a bodybuilder, getting big and strong. I did some boxing, and I wrestled throughout my life and all that. That became my identity. But I still never, before and after the divorce, or all this time, I always kind of felt like a failure to my parents. And I think what drove me a lot was not just my parents, was my other family members. I had a lot of successful uncles, very successful aunts. I mean, very wealthy family members, very intelligent family members. And then on my other side of the family, I had a lot of Italian guys that were just very alpha male. And I wanted them to respect me and love me, and I loved them. And be the nephew, be the big brother, the cousin, or be the young brother that everybody wanted, to be around. And I always wanted to have everyone's back. And I just had my mother just surprised me this week with a 50-year-old birthday party. She really surprised me. My girlfriend, my cousin at his play. They all went full out. It was unbelievable. Brought in a bunch of friends that I haven't seen since grade school, junior high, high school, family members. It was amazing. And it was, they leave cards and comments, and we were talking about the podcast and all that, and thank you for this or that and this. It's not to toot my own horn, but I really was like taken back saying, wow, I did a lot of things because I loved them genuinely, but I thought a lot of times they thought I failed. And not just, I don't mean marriage. I mean like I wanted to be a filmmaker, and even though I made a few films, I never hit the big time. I wrote a couple books. It wasn't like I was on the bestsellers list, nor that wasn't why I wrote them. But I felt like even creating a podcast and a YouTube channel, it was amazing how many people I'm reaching out to and touching. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was actually doing what I wanted to really do too, which was help people. And I was really taken back by that. I was like, all the years, 50 years or whatever, I'm going on 50, I always felt kind of like I was failing. I don't know why. And I think a lot of people, you may be one of them, that had maybe a lot of aspirations or inspirations. What am I saying? I screw words up sometimes. But I had all these things, or you have all these things that you think you're going to accomplish and you don't. And you kind of way deep down inside, you're like, I'm a fucking failure. I can't seem to win. I don't, you know what I mean? It's almost like a boo-hoo fest. You don't want to show people that, but you're not at the level that you wanted to be. You don't have the things you wanted. You're not always doing the things you want to do, and you consider that a failure. I get it. Especially if you're around a lot of prosperous people, because I'm around a lot of prosperous people that have way more money than I do. But a lot of those people also, it comes with a lot of problems as well. But a lot of successful people I'm around have wonderful lives too. So I don't want to hear the bullshit that a lot of wealthy people are the most miserable people. I'm calling them bullshit on that one. I have a lot of wealthy family members, friends, colleagues that are having a wonderful life. They may have their small bumps in the roads like everybody else. They're doing very well, and God bless them. But even them, I could tell if I talk to them, because I think when people talk to me, for one, I'm not going to tell anyone their problems or what they're telling me about, but also I'm usually always genuine with them in my life. If I'm doing this, I tell them I'm doing it. Or if this didn't work out, it didn't work out. I never try to bullshit people. The only time I'll bullshit is like if we're telling jokes or like a comedy bit or something like that I like. But the truth is you ask me a question, I'm going to hit you right between the eyes with it. You may not like my answer, you may like it, but I'll tell you the truth, what I went through, and I won't sugarcoat shit. So if you do feel like this is what I'm getting to. I'm not going to probably be able to change that. Only you can. You probably already know that. You probably heard, you may even be caught up in the law of attraction, and I like that stuff. Religion, thinking that's going to answer everything for you, which God bless if it does. Maybe you're caught up in politics. Certain things go a certain way that way. It may help you, whatever your angle is. But you really got to stop. I think people need to stop looking at themselves as a failure, because you really don't realize how many lives you're touching or how much you're succeeding. And most people I talk about a lot of times are like, oh, they always start a conversation. The problem is, that's usually what, you know what I mean? Not the solution. Or they're always kind of starting a conversation, well, you're not going to believe what happened to me. I don't get, it never goes my way. This or that or whatever. I have a massive family, and I got a newsflash for everyone. It never goes any way, like anybody's way to the money. Everybody is always failing usually to succeed. Right? That's how it works. If you want to try new things, that could be relationships, you're not going to come out of it unscathed. You get in a relationship, one out of the two of you may or may not cheat. One or two of you may get sick. One of you two may leave each other. Whatever the case may be, that doesn't mean it's a failure. And I used to say this all the time with work, which aggravated me. People can work for many, many years for someone and they're great. But at the end, when they're getting ready to leave, it's almost like a divorce. They look at the bad time right at the end. Like the last 2 weeks or a month, if they quit on you or got fired, then they talk shit about that person for the rest of their life. I want to slap those people in the face. Really? Because I knew somebody that, you know people that work with people or been in relationships, even divorce. That person was someone you loved, that you worked with, or that you're in a relationship with many, many years. And I'm not saying that maybe they did do something to hurt you. Now, if they stole from you or whatever the case may be, I get it. You're going to be very hurt by that, or cheated on you. I get it. But if you look at, if you were with somebody 20 years and you have kids and then you got a divorce, those 20 years couldn't have been that bad for the most part, because you were doing something that most likely you wanted to probably do, which was maybe get married, or you worked at a job where you loved the people around you, or you were inspired. Now, if you did something for decades that you despise doing, that's on you. That's not on anybody else. That's somebody who wants to almost torture themselves or be in a miserable situation. Now, I'm not talking about people in other countries. I'm talking about the United States, where we really do have the freedom to kind of, try different things, even if you're not the sharpest tool in the shed. So if you're a cop, you wanted to be a cop, you're a cop, and you despise being a cop, but you did it for 20, 30 years and hated every aspect, that's on you. You could have changed professions. You could have went and did something else. But back to the way you feel, and please take the time out to figure out why you're doing a lot of things you're doing. Like I said, I realized I was doing a lot of things to impress my parents. I really was. And my mother, I know, really thrived off that. God bless her. If I was on the cover of a magazine, she went crazy for that. I'd get write-ups in major magazines when I was making movies. I got accepted into film festivals. My mother lit up, and I was so excited for her, but I really was kind of doing this for her and my friends. And I remember my first movie I did, Sore Losers, which was about the underground world of Chicago, gambling. And I had a sick daughter going through, she just got out of a liver transplant. I had another daughter just born. And I lived in Florida basically from when I was 18 to like 30 again. And I just wanted to make a movie, not only because I always want to make a movie, but I want to bring all my friends and collaborate and everybody together. I miss them. And I wanted to show everybody, like, as a group, we can do something, because we all love movies, a lot of us. So I'm like, you know what, as a unit, let's do this. And we did it. And I loved it. We were just talking about it again. I got to do some tweaks on it. If you want to check it out, it's on YouTube, Sore Losers. My version, there's another Sore Loser movie out. But, I was making that film too to show my friends and everyone that I can do it and so can they. And we did it. But those are things, again, up and downs that I've had. And then when I was trying to raise funding for we're trying to put a slate of films together. We worked many, many years, me and my production partner, and it failed. Cost a ton of money, aggravation, legalities. It was a nightmare. I was never so crushed in my life. I literally lost myself emotionally. Mentally, I was gone. I felt when it didn't go through, and we worked so hard and we went to a couple meetings, and then when it officially fell through, I was numb. I was okay with it. It was really weird. And then it was like it was almost like a death where I didn't know where to go now in my life. I wrapped so much into me making films in my future, and I spent so much money and time that I didn't know anything else at this point. And I was in shock. I even had to, I left and went to California, and my kids were with my ex-wife. I went and just stayed with my cousin for a while, and then I was working and traveling by myself. I had to be by myself, and it wasn't a boohoo fest. I was just so lost. And I think sometimes we find ourselves in life lost, and then we start, again, devaluing ourselves or feeling like a failure. And sometimes what you need to do is, honestly, you just need time away to think. I did a podcast not long ago, just sit down or lay down and think, because we're always kind of like scrambled eggs. We're always busy doing things that we don't really take time to say, okay, what am I going to do this year that I really want to do? Or what's working in my life? What isn't? What do I hate about what's going on? What do I love? How are things really working between me and my wife, or me and whoever I'm with? Or, really just not becoming what I call the analyzer with the big A on the chest, where you analyze everything and make everybody nuts, because I was one of those. Just somebody who sits back and thinks. And you'd be shocked if you just sit in a room. See, I'm in hotel rooms a majority of the time by myself, or traveling, driving, or in an airplane. All I basically do is think. I can go, without ordering food or getting my hotel, I could go a week without talking to anybody I know. I don't know anyone except on the phone, my mom, my dad, my daughters, and my girlfriend Rhea, and call it a day, or maybe a buddy here or there. It gives me so much time to think and work on my problems, and not back to problems, but work on my mindset. Where am I at? What am I appreciating? What am I not appreciating? Calling myself out on my bullshit. The other day I was getting very aggravated because of I was traveling, like just literally the other day, and things were going my way. I had a bunch of, and then I was ready to lose my temper, and I haven't done that in so long. And I stopped myself. There's nothing wrong with releasing your anger or whatever. I'm like, what are you're going to sit here and scream at who? At what? Like, man up, make it happen. Something goes wrong, you make it right. That's my theory. Boo-hooing about it or yelling at somebody about it, getting on the phone, bitching to somebody who has nothing to do with it or that really can't help you because of an airplane, and then your hotel has, they're all booked or blah, 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 whatever the hell it is. Again, I'm thinking, wow, what a failure. I can't get shit done anymore. I'm getting older now. I don't have the endurance. It's all nonsense. It's all bullshit we keep cramming in our head that doesn't help anybody. And really becoming self-aware. Become self-aware of who you are, what you want to be, where you want to go. That's really, it sums it up there. And if religion, politics, if fitness, if your job, career, all them things are helping you get there, good for you. But if some of those things are not where they're supposed to be, as far as where you want them, and they're holding you back, you really need to address them. So if you feel like shit and you want to work out, start learning how to make time to work out. If you're working too many hours, like I have friends that are killing themselves, that are middle-aged, that look literally 65 years old, that are exhausted, that are neglecting their health, they have got to figure it out. And they come to me and I tell them straight up, right? A lot of people, I don't think they're getting the proper amount of sleep. They're eating shitty. And others, you know what I mean? They may be taking care of themselves physically, but kind of letting themselves financially slip a lot. So you got to balance it out and realize, you're not going to bat 1,000 across the board for the most part. Some can. But I bet you my ass if you go to even billionaires or multimillionaires, which I know a lot of millionaires and things, they don't bat 1,000. They're not always the smartest guy in the room regarding many things. They may have mastered what they know. That doesn't mean they mastered every aspect of what they want to know or what they still want to become. They're always, trying to do the best they can. But just because they make a lot of money doesn't mean they're in really good shape. Or just because they're in really good shape doesn't mean that, vice versa. You get the point. And I'm just using being in shape as one of the things. But a lot of millionaires, they made a lot of money. I know guys that was in a business they necessarily didn't like. Some are even embarrassed of what they do, which makes no sense. But they wanted to do something else. They have dreams of becoming something else. Or they may end up at a position in their life they just don't like anymore. And that could be even being divorced. That could be all these different things. People have problems now more than ever. Watch the TV, watch the internet. I think a lot of us in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, actors, public figures, politicians, or whoever you thought had these wonderful lives, then you're starting to see behind the curtain that they don't. So please take care of yourself. All right, and start thinking about who you are, what you're doing, what you want to be, and really work on it. It takes time. I always say it doesn't take days, weeks. Sometimes it takes years, maybe even decades. I don't know, but start going in that direction. As you know, if you kind of start walking, even if you curve or move just a little bit left or right, and then you look at that line as you keep going, how far off it is. But that's what you're going to have to do if you want to start making changes. You got to pivot yourself. But a lot of that starts internally. Don't lie to yourself. I always say quit bullshitting yourself. And stop feeling like a failure. I promise you, most likely, you are not a failure. You're actually pretty unbelievable at a lot of things that a lot of people aren't. I talk about that all the time. Like, you may be able to fix cars unbelievably, and, your boss can't even change his tire, hypothetically. Now, your boss may have more money than you on one end, and, you could fix cars, but whatever the case may be, you are talented, I'm sure, in a lot of things. And you'd be surprised if you start trying new things as well, how good you are at different things that you never knew about. So that's something to really think about. If you are failing at a lot of things you're doing, maybe you're just not attacking the right things, even though a lot of things may be what you think. So if, for instance, I'll just use for an example, is, in the film industry, you may not be a great director, but you may be a great producer, right? Or you may even be a great actor, or you may be great in there's so many different areas of the film industry that you don't always have to get locked into one. You could become an editor, an executive producer. Who knows what you could be? You got to learn to sometimes open your mind and say, well, I'm just using that for an industry. You may love the film industry, or you may love business, but the businesses you kept trying, and I've been one of these guys. I try different things all the time, and I have failed. Why did I fail? A lot of times I just didn't have enough knowledge about it, or I set myself up to be in the wrong position in that business, or I went after the wrong business. Just because you like something doesn't mean you're always going to be great at something. It reminds me of the old days when a lot of guys, I used to collect money in and out of bars my entire life. A lot of bars go out of businesses in restaurants, as you know. But everybody on the opposite side of the bar that doesn't own the bar or run the bar, they're always telling everybody else how to run the bar or how to run the restaurant. What's not working, what's working, all that talk, all that smack. And I know a lot of those guys that went and brought bars and restaurants. Almost all of them failed. The same way they were talking about how the other people didn't know what they were doing. But just because you like to sit around and drink and eat food doesn't mean you're some expert in the bar industry or restaurant industry. You don't. It's a business, right? You got to know a lot of things. So I'm just using that for an example, but I'll wrap it up there. Stop thinking you're a failure, you're a winner. All right? I had a clothing line out years ago, Sore Loser Wear. It was a clothing line for people who hate to lose. My slogan was, it doesn't matter if you win or lose, as long as you come in first. And that's kind of how you got to look at it. I'm just kidding. I thought that was kind of funny, but I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, check out my YouTube channels. I'm posting a lot of things on there right now regarding fitness. Just put up a bunch of stuff on my workouts, different workouts I do. I also go to different gyms all over North America, go to some of my favorite Italian restaurants, and talk about my Mastering Self-Confidence program as well. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, so you can reach me there as well. And that's really all I got for you. So take care, and if you're traveling, safe travels.